Welcome to Wine Soundtrack USA. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world. In 30 answers, discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack. This is Allison Levine, and today I'm in the Santa Rita Hills with Peter Work of Ampelos Cellars. Peter, welcome to Wine Soundtrack, and tell us about Ampelos.
Thank you so much. Great to have you here, Alison. Kind of coming back here. It's awesome. It's beautiful. We're sitting here. The sun is almost setting over the vineyard in the back. We're sitting here in our house, getting ready for a good meal. And so, your Ampelos Cellars was a crazy project that Rebecca and we started up good 25 years ago when we bought a piece of property up here in. Back then it was Santa Ynez Valley West, kind of, and then it became Santa Rita Hills. We were very lucky to be in that appellation in 2003 when it was approved 20 years ago. So we started out from scratch. There was nothing on the land. Rebecca and I had absolutely no clue about farming. We were IT executives. We just love to, be on the professional floors and not be out in the farm country, but bought the land and decided that wouldn't it be great to one day look at a vineyard, have the dogs and horses running around you and just see where that would take us.
And that's what you have today.
That's what it looks like today. Isn't that cool? Isn't that
very cool?
Awesome?
So tell me about this property. How many acres are we on?
So we purchased 82 acres in 99 as raw lands with nothing planted on it. And then we initially in 2001 planted 15 acres. Because we're in Santa Rita Hills, because of the unique climate you have. As we look out, we can already see the evening fog is rolling in from the ocean with the cooling effect. So it is ideal country for Pinot Noir. So 2/3 Pinot Noir planted, a little Syrah, little Grenache, little Viognier, little Riesling as well. And then in 2004, we expanded with another 10 acres, so 25 acres planted in total.
Wow, and a nice variety of wines. And in terms of your wines, what's your total case production and where can we find your wines?
So we make about 5,000 cases, 12 packs, Rebecca and I. We sell them through different channels. We, of course, have a tasting room, as you should have in the Wine Ghetto in Lombok. We have, of course, a website where you can buy them online. We have a great wine club with a lot of real passionate wine lovers that have been participating in that wine club that we kept going for many years. We have many good friends that we met through the wine club. Our wines are also distributed in the United States, in different states, California, of course, New York, New Jersey, Colorado, Texas, and a couple of other states that are smaller sales volume. And then internationally, actually our biggest market of any market is a little country that few people know about called Denmark. Guess why?
Because you're from there, because you're the Danish cowboy.
Exactly. So it's actually a huge market for us because I love going there. People love the wines. People love wine and food. People appreciate you always spending good money on wine. So it's a great market for us. We just this morning packed up an order for Norway. We are in Sweden. We are also just getting into South Korea. For a number of years, we've been in Singapore and in Japan.
Wow. So that's a very great international market. I mean, you're really all over there. So you're from Copenhagen, from Denmark. What is your first memory relevant to wine?
So I remember growing up that my parents, not like they would drink a lot of wine, but on Saturday evening, they would open up a bottle of wine. And I had 3 other siblings, much older than me, and they left. So I was like the only one back home. And, I was probably 10, 12 years old on Saturday evening. I give Peter a little glass of wine, let him taste some of that. When I went traveling with my parents, my father loved to go to wine regions, like whether it was in France or Germany, taste a little bit of wines. I would, sneak in there and taste with him. And I just had this interest in wine. Then after I graduated, finished high school, I took 1 year off, worked at a hotel restaurant, and there I got in charge of the inventory, and the main guy was teaching me the difference between the different French wines and the Italian wines, and I got really excited about back then. So somehow wine has always been my interest for so many years.
And is there one particular wine that stands out as one of those aha moment wines that put you on a trajectory or opened your mind up to something, or just was just a perfect time and place?
You know what? In general, I hear this often. People say, "Oh, that was the way." Well, I had that your Romani Conti 2005 from DSC, or whatever it was.
Yeah, well, anyone who has Romani Conti says, "Aha!"
Right, exactly. I've had the two neighbor vineyards, but not that one. But there's none of those. But there's actually one thing that sticks out. That was when I was training to get my quartermaster sommelier level 2 in 2015. Rebecca said, "What do you know the least about?" And, it's all self-studies. So I said, it's probably Spain. So she said, let's go. So we went to Spain for 3 weeks in December. And our highlight was we went to Priorat. And in Priorat, we spent some time with our Palacios. We spent some time with René Barbieri, the younger one. And with René, one evening, we drank a lot of wines with him. And at some point in time, he opened up a bottle of Carignan, 100% Carignan. And when I taste that, I'm like, oh my God. That opened up some for me, and that was why we now make Carignan every second year or so. So there was one bottle there that stood out.
Wow. Well, see, it's an aha moment. I mean, it may not be the quintessential of like my life-changing, but Carignan, yum. I mean,
exactly.
Delicious.
It's yum. It's delicious.
So, we're in your home. I see you have a little wine cellar. I can see the window to one. I don't know how much wine is there and where else it's hidden in the house, but what would we find here? Is there a lot of Ampelos? But I'm sure there's a lot of Ampelos because that's what I'm drinking right now. But what else is in your cellar? What do you drink?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We have about 750 bottles in there in the cellar. And what you would find in there is there's very little Ampelos in there. There's about, over in the corner, there's probably 2 or 3 cases of Ampelos. And in general, when Rebecca and I open wine here, which happens pretty much 7 days a week or maybe 8 days a week. So when we open up wines here, probably about 3 out of 4 bottles are not Ampelos wines. And that is because we just love to learn. We love to try new things. We have waves of different grapes we go through. Right now we are very much on a Mencia kind of wave. We love that. We love great Rhone wines. And we just think there's so much great value you can find around the world. On the white side, my wife is just pointing herself to the nose. I think that means that she agrees with. On the white side, we love a lot of Spanish whites right now. We were exactly a year ago, we spent some time in Portugal. And they've got Port 1 up in Douro, but some of the red wines coming out of Douro are just like amazing wines. So we buy a lot of wines from over there that we enjoy.
Anything you opened up recently that drank really well?
I mean, last night we had a gorgeous. Can you find that? Is that in the trash somewhere, honey? But last night we had a really great. It was a basic Côte de Rhône, probably like $25 a bottle, and we had it with some spicy food last night. It was a great shrimp, bacon, and then organic vegetable dish that we had with good spice level, and it just paired perfectly. We're not into like popping $100 bottle of wines every night. That's just not our style. We got a bunch of them sitting there, but we don't open them. We just like to find good value wines and open them up and have fun with them.
Absolutely. So do you think there's a such thing as a perfect variety?
No, I really don't. Because first of all, if I start defining perfect varietal, Rebecca's going to jump in because we have 2 different definitions. I'm, of course, a Pinot Noir guy. You got to have Pinot. She's the Syrah woman, so therefore, for starters, and there was no perfect varietal in our household here. But I also think that it comes and goes in waves. I also think that it's about what mood you're in. I also think, what time of the day. What is it going to be with? Is it by itself? Is it with food? Is it what I call the after-dinner wine when you're done with dinner and you turn on the fireplace and pet the dog? What kind of wine do you want to drink when you're sitting there and enjoying things? So it depends upon exactly where you are in the situation.
Absolutely. So for somebody, who isn't necessarily, there are people, I should say, that aspire for perfection, right? Scores. People go after scores, and people look at high numbers as being perfection, close to it. What's your opinion on wine critics and scores?
I really believe that wine critics were very important when it was hard to get information about wines.
Pre-internet.
Yes, exactly. When Robert Parker became popular and people in like Midwest could not just drive out to the winery and taste the wines themselves, I understand why it was important. I read Wine Spectator from beginning to end for many, many years myself. I just think that today, when you have so much great knowledge out there, so many, people, everybody's a journalist nowadays, so don't take me wrong, but there is just so much great information available out there through blogs and through podcasts and through social media, etc. So I just think that in general, the value of or the importance of wine analytics, scoring wines, is just not as high on my agenda as it was in the past.
So for you as a wine drinker, red, white, or rosé?
Yes.
Still or sparkling?
No, I mean, I'll tell you. So, not to do name dropping, but it's just 3 hours ago, we were sitting out here with our good friend Kurt Russell and having a good meeting with him about some, we popped a bottle of white wine, and then we popped a bottle of rosé wine. And, you and I and Rebecca are going to be drinking some red wine later on. It's again about where we are, what situation. I would say that probably about 2 out of 3 bottles of wine that we drink are red wines.
Okay. Still or sparkling?
So sparkling is interesting. Like yesterday afternoon, we had a great bottle of actually Ampelos sparkling wine. But in general, I don't think I'm a very good appreciator of sparkling wines. It is rare that we open our sparkling wines at home, even though we sort of make it ourselves. But sort of make it. But I mean, I think that in general, good sparkling wines are just priced a little bit too high. I'd rather spend half the money and get a great bottle of white wine.
Absolutely. So you spoke a little bit about the wine you had, the Côte d'Aron wine that you had, and the dish you paired with it. And obviously, you guys are big cooker. You cook a lot. You have a lot of spices here. You work with a lot of different things. You have a garden outside. I'm curious how you approach food and wine pairing. Do you think there are rules to follow? Do you have guidelines you can suggest? Or, is it just whatever the mood brings you?
So I think, first of all, this thing about finding a good wine that pairs with food. Well, think about that. You make wine once a year and you make food every evening. So it's more the other way around. How the heck do you find some food that pairs with wine, right? So what I love when I do winemaker dinners, I just got back from a 3-week trip to Denmark where I did 23 winemaker dinner and tasting events. It was like
a lot of eating and drinking.
Yeah, it was great. And I still lost weight. But the thing about that is that it's so cool because typically the chefs have had a chance to taste the wines and they will do their very best to match their food to the wine. So here's an example. We started a few years ago, doing an orange wine. It's basically a skin fermented Albarino, which is very unusual because you got tannins on a white wine, which you're not used to. I was at a very high esteemed golf club in Denmark where they did a winemaker dinner, 70 people. And these are not just like people with tattoos and rings in their ears. They're stylish people, right? And the chef put on a 5-course dinner, and one course was actually with orange wine, with asparagus, white asparagus with orange wine. And I'm like, that's daring. Very. But it really worked. And that's so great when you work with chefs at good winemaker dinners that really know how to pair things. The other night, Rebecca was doing a winemaker dinner at the LA Zoo, where they had also a menu, and she was talking about that they have their barramundo fish that they are made with green curry, and what else? Green curry and black ancient greens, right? And they are greens, and they have paired that with our Syrah Grenache blend, our Syrah. And you said that worked really well, right? It was so good. So I think it's so awesome when a chef takes a wine and does something unusual and makes it work.
So for somebody who hasn't had the pleasure to taste Ampelos yet, what do you think they're missing out on?
Ampelos? No, I mean, what we stand for, and this will be a little bit longer one, we believe in, number one, we believe in farming. We believe in, it's our own grapes. I'm looking at the vineyard right now out through the window. A vineyard that we planted in 2001 and 2004, and in 2006 took through conversion to organic biodynamic. Later on, sustainability, regenerative. So it all starts in the vineyard. All starts with good farming, good conscious farming, not with a bunch of crappy chemicals introduced along the way. And really a principle of not controlling vines, not being in charge of it, but working together in a partnership with vines, Mother Nature, with the microbes, with the good beneficiary insects, with the weather, etc. So exactly.
Rebecca's going to chime in a little bit here.
I told you when you were preparing, I said she is going to jump in on it. No, but that is where it begins, right? So good conscious farming. And, certified and blah, blah, of course. And then when we bring them into winery, then it's about low intervention. Whatever you hear, we call it natural wines. We've done natural winemaking for almost 15 years now, since 2010. So it's like no yeast added, no nutritional, no fermentation added, none of that added to it. We do very low level of sulfites just to make sure we keep the bacterial under control. And then just let Mother Nature be Mother Nature and develop a good wine.
So somebody who hasn't tried the wines is going to taste Mother Nature.
That's exactly it. It's Mother Nature, and that is what's fascinating. Rebecca and I both ex-IT people, corporate executives, and for us to come out of that world and come up here and learn how to work in a partnership with Mother Nature and to create a beautiful product that goes in a glass of wine is just fascinating.
So if space aliens were to land on your property right now and knock on the door, which of your wines would you want to welcome them with?
It depends upon the situation. We'll start out with a glass of Cabernet Blanc.
Well, the Claret Blanc, I have to say that the label looks a little space-like. I mean, it looks like something's coming out of the sky, so that'll work.
Yeah, so here's the deal, is that we've been making wine, Rebecca and I, since 2003. So we got like 2 decades into it. But a couple of years ago, we said to each other, we got to start thinking about the next generation. What do they want? So we actually created a new label 2 years ago called Funky Town. And Funky Town is about something a little different. You see, the label looks so different from Ampelos labels, right? But it's about doing new varietals, doing new ways. This is a Claret Blanc, a white grape that nobody knows about. It's a traditional Chateauneuf du Pape and a Languedoc grape that's always used as a blending grape. We did 100%. It's from the biodynamic vineyard, Martian Vineyard.
Yeah, so perfect for the space aliens is to give them something from Martian Vineyard.
From Martian, that was good. I didn't see that coming. That's a good one. And then we also did a Piquette, which is a low alcohol wine with a sparkling thing. It glows in the dark. It's beautiful.
Fun.
And we do the orange wine. I talked about Albarino and the Cabernet I mentioned. They're just like different wines.
Wow. Fun. So for some, we're looking out at your vineyard. You've spoken to that, and you have, all these beautiful rows of vines that are just outside the window. I'm sure you spend a lot of days walking through the vineyards, spend a lot of time out there, especially because you're a biodynamic producer, which means you are in touch with Earth. So I'm curious, you ever talk to your vines?
No, I don't. It's funny. Have I ever talked to the vines? Good job. Nice job. Sue, you're behind. Joe, you're doing great there. No, I haven't done that one.
No.
I don't talk to them. I don't sing to them. And I don't think it really matters. What I think that matters, truly believe in this, is that they know that I care. They know that we care. The vines can feel that we care for them. And I think that's what is really important.
So are there any sort of good luck rituals that you do at the start of harvest? I know that you're gearing up for another one coming up in a few months. Any good luck rituals established?
A good luck ritual, besides just making sure everything is ready and clean. And a very important part of harvest is to make it a social thing. So like, for instance, what happens every day during harvest, Rebecca cooks for everybody. So all the meals we're having is made by Rebecca. And I think that's one of the rituals, is that everybody who works at harvest knows that it's Rebecca's homemade cooking.
So, we know that every vintage tells a different story. We're blessed here in California to have a lot of consistency, more or less. Do you see more vintage variation, or do you see more commonalities from one year to another?
I think that we are seeing a little bit more extremes nowadays. Last year, we had, when harvest was just about to start, we had 6 heat spike days in a row. We've never seen that before. 6 days in a row where it was above 100 degrees. Wow. This spring, we actually saw frost in the second week of May. I haven't seen that before. So just like, what was that, 2 weeks ago, a week ago? So I think we're just seeing more extremes nowadays. But our extremes are really nothing compared, nothing compared to the extremes that you are seeing in Europe, for example. I mean, we'll still talk about them, and they're enough to start bothering us a little bit. But when you see about like the frost and the hail and the whatever they've had in different regions of Europe over the last just 5 years, it's been crazy. I think we are lucky that we are so close to the ocean. We are, I mean, again, we're looking at the ocean fog that's rolling in right now. And the Pacific Ocean is fairly stable in temperature, with the cold temperature coming down from Alaska, that we do see relatively stable situation here compared to many other places.
Aside from any sort of curveballs that Mother Nature throws, are there any signs, omens, or predictors that you look for that are going to tell you what a vintage is going to give you?
We constantly look for what the weather forecast is. We constantly look for how much rain we're going to get, and these different factors. So let's talk about rain for a second. Our average rainfall where we are is 14 inches a year. And it's measured from 1st of July to the end of June, the next calendar year. So it's basically over the winter, 12 months. And this year, over that rain year, we got 34. So we basically got 2.5 times average rainfall this winter, which is the highest we've ever seen. And what does that do? Well, it's very weird and all kind of problems with the soil and erosion, whatever. That's fine. We'll fix that. But I think we can see it right now in the growth of the vine. The vine started late this year because it was a cold spring. It's still a little bit chilly out there for the year. But with all the water we have in the ground, I'm just seeing growth in the vines right now. Like absolutely, they're going nuts right now, growing. It's really cool.
Interesting. So we're going to step away from wine for a second. And I'm curious, you had a career in IT prior, but when you were a little boy, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I knew exactly what. I read this book my parents had in Danish. It was called What Can I Become? And I was looking for how can I make the most money. And it was either to become a doctor, to become an attorney, or to become an engineer. And I didn't like doctors. I didn't understand what an attorney was, so I wanted to become an engineer.
And that's what you did.
Exactly, that's what I did. And my dream was to become an electronic engineer, which I ended up becoming, even though I never worked in that field. And I wanted to work for Bang & Olufsen, which is a high-end stereo manufacturer in Denmark. That didn't become part of the real thing.
It did or did not?
I never worked for B&O. Oh. But that was what I wanted to. I think I was 10 years old when I said I want to be an engineer working for B&O.
Wow. So when you're not working, how do you spend your free time now?
I mean, the question is, what is work? It's such a gray area, right? So, like right now we're sitting here having a nice time. It's great to see you again. We're going to have a good evening with some good wine and food. And is that work? Is it work we are doing right now? Is it when Kurt was here a few hours, was that work? And, this weekend we spent it with some friends and it's a gray area. Yeah. So what do we do when we're having fun? Well, we're sort of still working very often. What we like to do is we like to take good care of our bodies. We like to do, exercising. We like to, do our weights and our stretches in the morning. We like to go for hikes. We really enjoy traveling. Music, we love going to concerts. I was just playing you a little bit of 4 weeks ago when I was at a Roger Waters concert in Copenhagen, recording some of that. We play music all the time here.
Do you have a favorite band?
Last time I saw Roger Waters was in 1968. I was 10 years old. I've been a Pink Floyd fan since I was 9 years old. But we're very diversified in what we play of music. What's that, Rebecca? Jackson Browne, Rebecca. I took her to. It's funny. I took her to a Jackson Browne concert here a year ago, and she's like, "Who's that?" And now all she plays is Jackson Browne.
And there was a little reggae playing when I walked in.
Yeah, of course. Bobby Marlowe or whatever that plays. We just like to. We like to listen to different music all the time.
So you're big.
See over there in the corner, right? I got my Fender jazz bass over there. Yeah.
So if Roger Waters were to walk in right now, which of your wines would you want to share with him?
Definitely. I mean, it depends upon who he's talking to. I'll pour him a glass of Pinot Noir. Rebecca will pour him a glass of Syrah.
Okay, so she's the Syrah girl. You're the Pinot guy. Yeah. What do you guys drink for a romantic? What makes her a romantic evening for the two of you, wine-wise?
When I opened a Syrah for her. The other night I popped a bottle of sparkling wine. It was good.
A happy medium.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you want to woo her, you open Syrah.
No, I open Chateauneuf du Pape. I know that is her favorite. I will open up a good Chateauneuf du Pape.
Okay. Now we know the secret. Mm-hmm. It's not about a first course, a second course. It's about the one wine.
Yeah, she loves it.
So tell me something. Is there a piece of advice? We get advice all the time. Teachers, parents, colleagues, friends. Is there a piece of advice someone gave you at some point that you carry through in how you work, how you live, how you look at wine, anything? Something that stands out?
Boy, this is going to be a long one. So I think that in general, first of all, I believe we have the best job in the world, farming grapes and making wine. There's nothing as good as that. And we often meet people that would like to do that. And you just got to understand, it takes a lot of money to be able to get to that point where you can make things hang together and go grapes and making wine. So there's a way you get into that. So I think that for people who are interested in getting on that journey, pay the ticket and make some money first through a primary career and then jump into and do it following. We believe that getting into this industry has added years to our life, and not to mention incredible amount of pleasure to our life. That's definitely something I'll pass on. The other thing I'll pass on is when I went to business school many years ago, there was a teacher I had that drew 3 concentric circles on the wall. And in the middle, there's a green circle. Around that, there's a yellow circle. And outside of that, a red circle. His point is that the green circle is where you're safe. The yellow circle is where you're not quite sure. And the red circle, you're totally nervous, don't know what to do. The more you push yourself into the yellow and into the red circle, where you really want to get back to the yellow and back into green, the more you push yourself out, the bigger your green circle gets. So this whole thing about push yourself in life, push yourself into unknown territories. And by doing more and more of that, you'll see how broad your horizon you get. You'll see how much self-security you get. You'll see how much more courage you'll have to keep on pushing yourself. And that transfers from family life to religion to sports to career to hobbies and to everything. So push yourself.
I love that because, my question is two-part, because first I ask you advice that you carry with you, and you gave us advice, that's my second question, to others. I love how the advice you just gave, the second one, is something that obviously you live by, pushing your boundaries constantly. So when you look back at your career, and it doesn't have to be wine, it could be wine, but what would you say is one of your proudest achievements to date?
It's really interesting because Rebecca and I met with a couple that we are, because of NDAs, unable to mention. A couple that is known by most people in the world, and talk to them about wines, presented wines, and we can talk more about it. But that is one of my biggest achievements in life, to do that. My second biggest achievement was that in the biggest celebration of 4th of July outside of the United States is actually in Denmark. There's a park in northern Denmark dedicated to US 4th of July celebration, where there's like 20,000 people every year up there. And in 2015, I was invited to be the main speaker at that event, and it was on the Danish television, whatever. And that was a very proud moment for me as well. Some years ago, I was given the American-Danish Innovation Prize for the work we've done on organic, biodynamic, sustainable farming. And then the fact that for a number of years, I've been on the board of directors of the California Sustainable Wine Growing Alliance, which is the biggest sustainable certification program in the world. I've been the chairman for a couple of years of it. I think those are good achievements.
Yeah, you've achieved quite a lot. I think there's probably more to achieve. I'm curious, we've talked a lot about wine, food and wine, all the dinners you do. Obviously, wine plays a part. You said that you and Rebecca drink probably 8 nights a week. So, complete this sentence for me. A table without wine is like?
A bad table? No, there got to be a better one. It's like a food without salt. Yeah, that's probably a good one. Yeah, all right, that's good. I'll buy that. Yeah.
Okay, so you have a big dining room table here. You set up a big meal. You've got your bottles of wine on the table, but there's an empty seat at the table. Who from any walk of life, living or deceased, would you want to share a bottle of Ampelos with?
Wow, that's a good one. Alive or dead?
Up to you.
I think that one of them would be Rudolf Steiner, but the problem is he didn't drink alcohol. He was a founder of the biodynamic thinking. He would be an interesting person to talk to.
So, obviously, you were talking about these extreme weather things, kind of putting this all together. Just as a thought on this, we talk about these weather extremes, and we know that there's climate change, and you referred a little bit to this in talking about being in the vineyard and such. I'm curious, do you think we'll be drinking wine in 500 years?
You know what? I think I will have to answer, unfortunately not.
Really?
I think that the whole world is moving too fast in the wrong direction, and too few people really seem to care about it. So unfortunately, I'm not sure that we are still going to be in a situation in 500 years from now where it would be viable to produce wines. I know it doesn't sound very positive, but we see things changing right now. And like I said, there are too few people seem to really pay attention. One of the things that Rebecca and I constantly ask each other is, what can we do? We can't do a whole lot because we're so small, but what can we do to change things? We took 25 acres of our property and planted vines in them, and we know that has a good impact on Mother Nature. We've seen how we have been healing the soil over the years that we've been doing our green farming, our organic biodynamic, whatever farming here. But I just believe that there are too few people in the world that seems to pay attention to this. And considering that it is every half an hour we're losing a football field of soil to urban development and to erosion in California itself, it is like just scaring what's going on.
Yeah. Well, so if that were happening right away and you were sent to a deserted island, what 3 wines would you want to take with you? Any 3 wines?
Probably a bunch of wines I've never had the money to taste in my life. So it would be, some of them are just kind of the obvious. Let's just get back to the Domaine Romanée-Conti 05 from the Romanée-Conti vineyard, because I've only tried Romeo Saint-Vivant and Le Tage from the neighbor vineyards. Another wine to bring would be a really old Chateau d'Yquem. I think what these does is super exciting to bring over there. And I'll probably bring some old ice wine from Mosel River.
And a Syrah, of course.
Bring a good Chateauneuf du Pape.
You get a 4th wine because you bring Rebecca with you. Well, to get to a happier place, because, it is a little sad to think about where things are going or could be going. But to get to a happier place, let's go back to music, because you are a music fan. Mm-hmm. Play a little game. Wine soundtrack. We got to pair wine with music. So I want you to pair some of your wines with music, what they make you think of. And I want to start with the Claret Blanche that we have been enjoying while we've been talking.
Okay, so it's kind of a lot of minerality. It's got a lot of things sticking out. So it would probably be something a little bit more noisy in it. It might be, what? Does Danish music count? Sure. I can think about some great Danish music. I grew up with a Danish band called Savage Rose. And Annie Seth was a singer in that band. And she had that screaming voice, and I could see it just totally fits with that Claret Blanche.
I love it. Okay, what about Pinot Noir? Now, you name your wines by, they have names like Roe and Pie, right?
Right, exactly. Greek characters. Yes.
And so how many different Pinot Noirs do you do?
So we do 4 different Pinot Noirs. We do our St. Rita Hills, and then we do a Lambda, a Roe, and a New, where the New is a barrel select single clone. Roe is a barrel select multiple clone, and Lambda is a main one.
Let's do Lambda.
So what I would pair with a Lambda is that I'm getting back to some of my favorite stuff. Some
Of course.
Pink Floyd. My favorite Pink Floyd is just like "Wish You Were Here" from the album "Wish You Were Here," and it's just such a nice, soft song, and I think it would just work perfectly with a bottle of Lambda.
I love it. And what about Syrah?
Oh, so Syrah, you need a little bit more bombastic stuff. You need it with something with a little bit more written to it. And you know what? I mean, what do you think, honey? What music would you pair with your Syrah?
I grew up in Alaska. We didn't have music.
They didn't have music in Alaska. That's a good one. Bad one.
That's getting her off the hook because she's hiding over there.
Yeah, she's hiding over there. So I might pick some. No, I think I actually go to do a little bit more classic rock and roll kind of stuff. I can think about a couple of good Rolling Stones songs there.
I like it.
Yeah.
Good. And you see how I did that? Your favorite Pinot, her favorite Syrah.
Yeah.
You got music.
Exactly.
It's a perfect evening.
Yep, exactly.
Well, we have come to the end. I have one final two-part question for you. The first part is, what wine region of the world is at the top of your bucket list to visit?
That is an interesting one because we really love to, probably because we've never been there, probably Mendoza. We've never been spending time in Southern America. So that would probably be one because we've been in most of the world's wine regions all over. Never been there. That might be the top one. Yeah. Is there one you have in mind, honey? One? Yeah, Alaskan wine region. Can I tell you an Alaskan wine story?
Yeah.
So we were up in Alaska years ago, and she grew up there, and she took me around, and we met with this guy who's a wine buyer for some wine stores. Sorry. And Rebecca and him started talking about wines. And, excuse me. And there is wine made in Alaska from milk wine. Milk.
Yeah.
So he said that they have like one bottle every year. They have a big live auction, and they have these live auction items. And one of the auction items is this bottle of milk wine, Alaskan milk wine.
The company no longer makes this milk wine. It was early on, and it was a Montessori that made it.
Wow.
And
So-
they had the patent of how to make wine out of milk.
So what they do is that they put this on the auction item, and somebody pays a lot of money for it, and the next year brings the same bottle back again because nobody want to drink that stuff.
And you never bought it and just drank it?
Nobody does.
Well, okay. So the second part of that question is, if somebody is coming here to the San Ynez Valley, to the Santa Rita Hills, how can they find you and how can they taste your wines?
There's this great thing called the internet. So you just go out and Google it. Google Ampelos, Ampelos, Ampelos.
But do not find the resort in Greece, because while that's wonderful, that's his sister's. You want to find the winery in California.
I know somebody who's been there.
Yes.
Right, Alice? So Google Ampelos, go to the social media. We are on Instagram, we are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. Come to our tasting room, buy some wines, have a good time.
And the tasting room is in the Lompoc Wine Ghetto?
Yes, exactly, which is right at the eastern part of Lompoc.
And it's open?
5 days a week, Thursday through Monday, from 11 to 5 to 4 on Monday. And we're actually on Thursday and Friday in a couple of weeks, we're starting up, doing a little wine bar in the evening until 7 o'clock. Come join us.
Fantastic. So you can't drink 8 nights a week with them, but you can drink 5 nights a week with them. Peter, thank you so much for joining us on Wine Soundtrack. I hope you had fun, and let's go drink some wine.
Let's do that. Alison, great to see you. Let's have a great time here. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack USA. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.